Yo, check 1 2 1 2. No, I'm not going to do that. What's up, everybody? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to MSP Community Live, the best conversations happening from all across the globe in our MSP communities. I'm Ray Orsini, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Matt Topper. How you doing, Matt?
Doing well. Just made it. Was having tech issues right before the show, so we could have solicited help from the audience if that hadn't worked out.
Yeah, I was already starting to reach out. Whatchamacallit. Lord knows I've done that to you guys more than enough times. So I figured I was owed one of like, oh shit, it'll just be me today. So how's your week been so far? I know we just had the Wednesday event with yourself, Kyle Spooner, Matt Rose, Dean Trempelis, host of Partner First, Dan Comis from Tech Runner. Am I missing anybody?
I think that's. I mean, we were on it. You didn't
Yeah.
mention our names.
Yeah, I mean we were on there too, but we're comedic banter basically. No, it was a good conversation that got derailed, but I like it in the sense that the original premise was what's basic minimum requirements for a client. That got derailed because, as you guys pointed out, the actual question wasn't as clear, right? We started going into what would be my minimum for a client or what would be your minimum for a
Yes,
client.
in tech
So we're
stack
going to
mode.
revise that, but it also came up. I think that's the start of a series. I think that's the start of something that we could, flesh out a little bit. And it was a good
It was
exercise.
very obvious that it's a good discussion, and once we got clarified on exactly what we were discussing, it went really, really well. So I think there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, Dean says it best. I love how confused we all got. That proves that we should talk about it more.
He's not wrong.
Yeah, and the conversation, for those that don't know, the conversation carried into the private host chat after the fact, where most of the players on the episode are also hosts. So we were still going back and forth for like what, a solid hour of trying to define like what's what.
Some good discussion there too, right? Could have
Yeah,
recorded that.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you can always be part of the conversation at the MMN Discord. Just go ahead and sign there and join us because Matt and I are both there, as well as Dean, Kyle, Jason Slagle's there. Dan Comas, I don't believe is there yet. We got to invite him.
Yes,
So
we'll be there.
yeah, we're not going to invite Matt Rose because too many Matts, right? We got you and Matt from MMN, so Matt Fox. So we don't need
Too
a third.
much. Everybody's named Matt. That's why I always end up with last name. I'm surprised it took this long for people to start calling me by my last name. It's one of those names that just happens everywhere I go.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good last
It
name
is,
though.
right?
Top. I mean, it just lends itself to being a nickname. So, you know. All right. So, what do we got here? We're covering the MSP stuff. As always, we're going to go over to Reddit first, see what's up. Let's see here. We have the Cloudflare hack that we want to talk about, the what to tell clients when shit blows up. What you want to do first?
So I think the line you pointed out from the Cloudflare thing I think it's worth talking about.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right.
my
So
cat wants to be on the show. Hey, Sammy.
we welcome all animals. My dog is normally here sleeping next to me. So, for those that don't know, Cloudflare was part of an attack last year involving Okta. It was November timeframe. We covered it on MSP Dispatch. It was all over the news. Cloudflare is generally really good about putting out the why and what happened. Like they're really good about RFOs, major incident reports, however you want to term it. They're very transparent. But the reason I wanted to bring this up, and that's exactly what they just announced. This was their Thanksgiving incident.
Yeah, and it was a good
that they
blog
put
too.
out.
No change here in their transparency and quality of after report.
Yeah, it's honestly that's the stuff we look at internally of like that's what we strive to hit. In many cases, we fall short of that because we have internal controls that cannot be as transparent as that. But it's a good metric. It's a good goal. The one that jumped out at us though was one of the comments from Cryptochrome. In hindsight, 99.9% of cyber attacks were largely avoidable. Matt, this is you deal with it than I do. Do you agree with that?
I mean, it's something of a tautology, isn't it? Like, yes, there's some root cause that you could have um, dealt with previously. But I think the takeaway from that is it's not quite that simple. Um, right? If the issue was a 0-day exploit or some kind of thing that there was no patch for, yes, maybe there was some extra layer you could have done to prevent that. But I think we should be operating under the premise always that you will be attacked at some point. You either have been and don't know it, or you are prepared for it. But this idea that if you do everything perfectly, you could be in a position to never get compromised, that just doesn't flow. I mean, I think he was saying it somewhat
Yeah.
cheek. He's pointing out the tautology aspect of it. Um, I think that's how I read it, at least.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is not one of the, I try to stay away from black and white as much as humanly possible because in our space, and honestly in most spaces in life, there is no black and white. There's always some gray area. Um, Knowing full well that there's plenty of attacks that could have been prevented by MFA. We report on them all the time. That's not
Yeah.
new. Um, but at the same time, the Microsoft breach not too long ago, I don't think that's going to come back being we didn't have MFA enabled. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
or the, like, Exchange stuff a couple years ago with the
yes.
EWS stuff.
Yeah. You look at what you call it, Log4j. There was nothing. I mean, you could argue updates
You
could
were
have,
on the latest
but
version and you were
yeah,
exposed,
that's
right?
right.
And
And it wasn't even just the latest version. It was like the latest version, like two previous versions, and even the next update still had issues and had to be updated. That was a that was a forever nightmare, like print nightmare. Um, I
you
don't
had to
see
fix
those
that.
things can't be avoided. You know what I mean? Those things you can try, but I think it's hubris to say that I can be 100% effective or even 99%. I'm not even gonna, you know, try to figure out what percentage are preventable because there's definitely
Yeah,
preventable ones, right?
and that's a good point, and I think the number is probably higher than we might guess, that a lot of the low-hanging fruit kind of things, because, what we're talking about are noteworthy because they're exceptions, right? They're relatively rare, the Log4j, the Exchange Hafnium stuff, the print nightmare. Um, the vast majority, and right, we have no idea what the percentage is, won't even hazard a guess, but you're most likely going to get popped for something like reusing a password or not having MFA or like leaving RDP open or something, right? That's a much more likely scenario than
Yeah.
new 0-day drops.
Yeah. And we see attacks that are just social engineering, right? I mean, it's as old as taking over cell phone plans or getting into your Amazon account or, this stuff happens. And preventable. Yeah. But what's the old saying? Hindsight is 2020. Um,
Yeah.
So, because I would say if it was 99.9% preventable, we would have nice mustache. We would have much less work to do, honestly. All right, so let's move on. The chat's going wild. They want a Bella cam, so maybe we'll get some pet cams going at some point. And there is a pets channel on MMN Discord, so go check it out there. So we have this one that I kind of really like. It is I work for an MSP that hasn't paid a major vendor in months. We owe them a couple houses the company doesn't have. Payment permanent disconnects are going to happen any day now. Management is pretending like everything is fine. What do I tell clients when everything
Oh
goes down?
man.
That's rough.
What does owe a house mean?
I think they mean like the cost of a house, right? Like say 250, 300,000.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
Um, I'm guessing at that, but that's how I read it.
That makes sense.
I mean, this to me screams. We always have to do this thing where we have to try to determine like what is the persona of the person asking this. To me, this is obviously not somebody who is in management or not somebody who has the decisions to pay the bills, but they maybe are frontline facing and they're responsible. And they're responsible for these communications, or at least they're customer facing, that these conversations will come up. Um, and even then, this stuff comes up. Forget it's not this bad. Stuff comes up internally where you're going to have hard conversations with clients. I mean, I don't want to call out any employers, but have you ever been in a similar situation, or you have any stories where somebody that's been in that kind of situation?
Of course, right?
Yeah.
I think this one is a little bit different. Having to explain that my employer didn't pay the service bill, um, that's tough. The answer to that is whoever didn't pay the bill gets to have the conversation with the client, in my
Yeah.
opinion, and you just defer that to them. But for something more minor, like somebody didn't call back or some kind of major or minor screw up that you're having to explain to the client, um, really all you can do is apologize and move forward. Like, the the key is just to not get hung up on debating the issue or should have just take responsibility, own it, and everyone move forward with it. Like the worst thing you can do is start getting into debates and discussions about, oh, you should have done this. Like, save that for later. Um, just own it.
There's plenty of blame to pass around, right?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Like, one of the catches to that, so we had an oops last night. We use name silo for some domain purchases.
Mhm.
One of our major networks is on that, on name silo. Name silo uses balances, so you can get the best price. So we usually have a couple $1,000 or a couple $100 in the balances for auto renewals, and that balance dried up, and a domain didn't get auto renewed last night. And thankfully, my engineering team caught it like that. I mean, they were on top of it within an hour. They were fixing it, but DNS went down. So, and DNS takes a minute to come back up. We screwed up,
Yes.
plain and simple. We screwed up. We created corporate comms of like, this is what we did, this is what happened, this is who's affected, this is how we fixed it, this is how we're going to prevent it in the future. We're sorry. Thankfully, it was midnight. It was like midnight, 1 a.m. Eastern time. The impact was minimal. There's a little stragglers this morning, but that the reason I bring it up though, that's assuming the company has corrected the issue or intends to correct the issue. This guy seems like he's up shit's creek without a paddle, right? It doesn't sound like they're able to correct the issue.
I mean, and that's different. This guy sounds like he is the poor, unfortunate person who has to talk to the client and has no ability to fix this issue himself whatsoever. Um, and man, I would defer to right whoever. Honestly, I'd probably be petty about it and say the person who didn't pay the bill, that person is going to call you back. Like seriously, there's no way you as a uh, tech or anyone who's directly client facing can deal with this.
Oh, good lord, I'm talking muted, like an idiot. Um, I love that one of the top comments here was, "Please, please be in my market." That that had me dying.
Right.
I mean, everybody's one man's misfortune is another man's treasure, right? We got Dean saying new in MSP where the primary tech owner had to go away on a state-sponsored vacation and panicked about what to tell their clients.
Ooh,
That's
man.
rough. That's tough. Um, let's see if we got any. Let's pull a spooner and hope we have some like nuggets of wisdom. Maybe there's some empathy in Reddit. I'll give you a finder's fee for every company you refer. Um, is there any web or Apple clients you don't want? I'll take them. Um, okay, I don't know why that was removed. Um, yeah, will too spread the love. Yeah, I mean, being on the other side of these situations, you stop paying vendors so you can pay your employees. Obviously, this only goes so far. This, I have a client in the exact same position, but they owe me, been owing me for months, and I call myself uh, going by to talk to management today, only to get there and find the place completely abandoned. Instantly infuriated. That person's SOL, and that sucks.
Yeah. I mean,
You know,
you stop paying your vendors, they stop giving you service. Like you can
yeah,
internally
that,
debate
that
the
seems to
the
be really
why, but
yeah. I
that's
mean,
the end of it.
what kills me? This is always solved by communication, right? Like, as a vendor, we get, and I'm sure you had this as MSPs, clients would stop paying for whatever reason. That credit card wouldn't get renewed, or that check wouldn't come in. And it's a good client. It's a normally they're fine. But you don't get the communication as to what happened. So you try to reach out with empathy, but that dries up, right? Eventually, you got to repeatedly go after them, and that always makes the situation worse. Versus, so we've had clients that thankfully we have good enough relationship with, and they're like, "Look, I'm having a rough month. I'll take care of this within 30 or 45 days, and we always work it out with them. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's not and I honestly, most vendors I've talked to are willing to work with their clients. It just involves communication. um, this to me seems like somebody that, not the original poster, that their ownership, that they just saw it getting bad, did nothing about it, ignored it, and just kept getting worse and worse and worse. um, I'm not one to jump to, you should jump ship and go do the 3 envelopes and get moving. um, but I think this is a good Buenos
It doesn't
Dias
sound good.
takeoff.
It
Yeah,
does not sound good here. Now, it
just
could be
sinking
some
ship.
weird, unique circumstance. Who knows? But we don't have a lot of info there. But it doesn't sound good to me. I would be thinking of leaving this place.
Yeah, I same. All right, so let's look for some more stories here. We got, how are you guys using Autopilot? I'm not going to repeat that user's name. Uh, it's interesting because Autopilot's been around for a couple of years now.
It's been
Um,
around since like what 2019.
yeah, I did
I
a
think
video
around
with
then.
Ernest Murray back when it first. I did a video, then I did another video with Ernest. Both are supremely outdated. There, I should take them off YouTube. Um, So it's fun to see this stuff. Have you played it all with Autopilot, Intune,
Oh
that fun
yeah.
stuff?
I'm a huge proponent of both of them.
Same. So this person's just joining the pool. I get that. We all learn in different speeds. How are you guys using Autopilot? We'd like to use it. The fact that most laptop vendors ship images that are usually several feature releases behind is causing various issues. Policies that require newer versions don't apply during out of the box setup. Uh, the user gets a laptop with an OS way out of date as there's no way to patch during provisioning. I will say we always had this with Dell, even from like way back. Dell had no problem shipping custom images if you worked through Dell Premiere.
Mhm.
Um, so we would do golden images back in the day before Intune. Um, Dell absolutely will work with you, and there's not like, these don't have to be large volumes. It was, I think we were selling maybe 200 grand a year in hardware, because most of the clients would purchase for themselves, but Dell would work with us on, and I know HP and Lenovo do the exact same thing, but they'll work with
They
you on
do.
what software is on the PC and what's not. You can tell them, I need this, so you have it in a ready state. Let Intune go, and that's how we do deployments today. That's exactly how we do it. Um, but there's nothing better than resetting your PC and within 10 minutes seeing all your stuff pop back up. I love that. Um,
Right? We're shipping it right to the end user. Man, that's just
yeah.
feels
That was
feels
the use case we
perfect.
talked about in 2020, right? That was the exact use case. You had
Mhm.
COVID going on. You couldn't do site visits as easily as you used to. You still had employees starting. You still had employees moving around. Being able to ship a box, they open it up, connect to their Wi-Fi, ready to go. That's pretty awesome. And you can even preload Wi-Fi if you had the serial number and some of the other information to throw it into. It's badass. Um, but you can do that at imaging. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, any other cool stuff since this person is just getting down this path? Any other cool stuff you're doing with Intune or Autopilot that you've done in the past that you want to share with them?
Oh man, I mean, so the way that I found I got way better at getting my images and Intune configs the way that I wanted them was I had a rule. Um, I set up my own machine in Intune like way back when we were starting, and made a rule that I wasn't allowed to change anything out of the box unless it was in an Intune script. And doing that to my and the other internal IT machines, um, man, by the time we were done, it wasn't just programs were installed; it was the thing was really ready to use and go.
Yeah,
But to the point that was raised about the updates and things like that, the the easy answer or it's kind of a cop out answer, but what we did was simultaneously tied things like our compliance policies to you need to be at minimum OS level, right? And you just can't sign into anything until you're at this, including patch level, right? Not just like Windows 10. Um, and part of the new setup for new employees was honestly like to let into and get it up to date. Like there's just no easy fix to doing that. What you can do from a security perspective is just ensure that if it's that far out of date, it can't actually get to anything yet. And then it ends up being a help desk call to walk them through getting it patched and updated. I never found a better answer than that.
No, it's Intune is finicky, no question about it. One of the most infuriating things is when you make a change and waiting for it to propagate. Um, Intune troubleshooting used to be a lot worse. It's not great today, but it used to be worse. So I get it. But I'm with you. We are completely out of the box setup right now with Intune. We have to be. Our employees are literally all over the world. And so it's great. I love it. And new software. I mean, we went to Cloudflare Warp and we're doing Cloudflare ZTNE and all the fun stuff, the Zero Trust, and we deployed that through Intune. Like it was, deploy it to engineering, have them test it out, blah blah, and deploy it to the rest of the groups. And I love it. So, I don't know. I'm an Intune fan. I hope they have a good time. This one, okay, I haven't read it yet, so let's hope it's
This
not too bad.
interesting title.
Well, I like this because every MSP has always complained about the previous MSP. That is universal, right? Even though I started this episode with saying I don't like black and white, but that's pretty damn close.
It's just like when you're fixing your house, right? Whatever the
Yes.
last guy did, total idiot. Meanwhile, I'm sure he had a really good reason that you find out halfway through the project. Oh, that's why he did it that way.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, as a homeowner, I found a million things the previous guy did. I'm like, why? The best part was they installed French doors, took out the sliding glass doors, and used the sliding glass doors for the pantry doors. And I noticed it took me a while to realize why or realize what they had done, and I didn't realize it until I saw the exterior alarm contacts on my pantry door. Like that's not necessary.
But like half the time you say stuff like that, like, man, why do you use this weird size? And then you go to install what you think is the normal proper thing. Oh, there's a pipe here, so it doesn't
There
fit.
was a workaround. There was um, and this comes back to Darwinism, right? It's not survival of the fittest; it's survival of the fit. You don't have to be the best; you just have to be acceptable. Um, all right. So, how do dumb IT admins stay in business? Tier 2 tech at a small MSP. I love my MSP. Awesome. Everyone here is knowledgeable, and I learn new stuff every day. Whenever we get a new client, I inevitably learn what not to do. Today, my boss told me that this new client we're picking up from another MSP has a second domain, and we've been waiting a week to get the domain transferred to us to manage. Well, the guy says, I'm still waiting on the code. So my boss goes to 365, sees their second domain. None of the emails have an alias for the second domain, so it's not getting delivered. How do you stay in business when you are incompetent at tier 2 knowledge? I'm going to start this with I'm gonna be a little crass here. Everybody is an idiot to somebody else. I don't care what level of knowledge you have. There's somebody that looks at you and you're going to say something, and they may be, courteous enough to not say it out loud, but I promise internally they're thinking that was a dumb move. I know I do it with my own staff. I don't vocalize it for the most part, but I mean, there's some stuff that is just obvious to us. I got 35 years experience at this. Like this Intune guy, right? He's just getting into Intune. So I don't find that they're dumb. They just made bad decisions that we may not, or they made decisions we may not agree with.
Yes. Right. The next guy is saying this about you.
Yeah. It's the 3 envelopes. I mean, and if you don't know the 3 envelopes, go over to our sysadmin. Every post about should I leave my employers has the 3 envelopes, and they explain it.
And I'll tell you what, this specific issue, I could see either of us doing
Oh yeah,
easily, right? Like,
easily.
I assumed I set up the alias on this when I set up the tenant and totally forgot about it. Like, that's not necessarily, does that make me a bad, incompetent admin? Maybe, according to this poster, but I think that's something that could easily happen.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can totally see starting down the path of a second domain, getting it started, management deciding to pause it, and then moving on. And fast forward 6 months, a year, 2 years later, maybe he forgot. You know what I mean? Like that is something I could easily forget that was never finished setting up, not malicious.
Yeah.
That's something one of my business coaches told me a while back. He said, never assume malicious intent. Um, and so I don't want to assume they're dumb. Maybe they just didn't know, or maybe, I mean, there's a million reasons it could have happened to any one of us.
I will say though, I think what they're getting at is there's a tendency to become somewhat isolated when you're one of these one man shops. I do think there is an argument that you're just not exposed to current trends and what's new in the industry. And so you end up doing things the way that you've always been doing and taught. And that can come off as bad or dumb or inexperienced when somebody from the outside, right, from an MSP who's looking at new stuff constantly comes in. And does that mean that they're a bad admin? Not necessarily. It means they're just not informed. And so to us, it looks, hey, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Meanwhile, we've hired some of those guys, and as soon as they skilled up, they became some of our best techs and best admins. It's just a knowledge gap.
It's funny. We were talking about this exact conversation. Dean and I in another Discord were talking about it. Unify, and Dean says he has a post that he just did on this. I've asked him in the MMN Discord for the link, so we'll post it. But we were talking about Ubiquity. Ubiquity just came out with their UNAS Pro, and it is the most ridiculous looking thing ever. And then they have the NVR, which is the exact same form factor, just the drive bays are organized differently. And it just screams to me like, if this was, if this was Tim Cook, right? He was famous for handling logistics superbly, and that was one of the keys to Apple's success or continued success. And I look at it and I'm like, it's just a server chassis with 5 2.5-inch bays or 3.5-inch bays. Make the chassis, put whatever OS you need, Dream OS, the NVR, the NASA, whatever. Use a single chassis. Make the IT admins' lives easier so you can use the same rack gear, so you can use the same peripherals. Like there is no need for 2U chassis with 5 bays. Like I can't think of a single reason for that. But Ubiquity, for all their horrible support issues and supply chain issues, they're insanely successful, right? Decisions not you or I would make, and frustrate the hell out of us to the end users, but still, it works, and that I get it's mind numbing, but it's just part of life. So let me ask this then: if you see something like that, how do you approach losing MSP if you were in that guy's position?
If I was the incoming MSP,
Yeah,
the
if you're
DNS,
the
the
guy that
original
you're
issue.
frustrated because you're not getting the code, you're not getting the domain transferred, you notice the screw up, or you notice the issue, I should say. Do you bring it up to the losing one? Hey, I noticed this. Just to give you a heads up, this was what was going on. No big deal. We solved it, so that maybe they're aware of it. You just drop it and handle it and move on.
I might I might say something very generic, especially if it's still the coexistence period where they're not fully out yet, but very cordially, right? What I probably would do, honestly, is like call up you or one of my other buddies and vent for a few minutes and then say something nice to the other guy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. There, you have to vent. Like, there's nothing wrong with venting, because we all get it. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of how you're going to handle it. Just get it
Yeah.
out, get it off your chest. It's no different. I go to the warehouse. I have a heavy bag in there, and in the gym, and so I'll hit the heavy bag for 10 or 15 minutes. Just let it all out, and then go back. Try to make it semi-productive. Dean
I
did
think
say
there's
he
a
did a
big
post. Go ahead.
yeah. No, I mean, so a big distinction though, I think, is if we were done with the handover, otherwise, I probably wouldn't say anything. It would come off as like high horse and all that. Like, but if we were still working with them, then I would mention something.
Yeah. No, I don't like burning bridges too. Like that's one of those things. Dean said he just actually did a LinkedIn post on this exact
Oh,
topic.
nice.
Nice. So that's the link in the chat. Go check it out. He said he made the same point. as the two of us took it further to say, don't allow assuming other MSPs suck to be a crutch for your own standards. Yeah, I don't disagree with that whatsoever. Um, so I say we're at 11:37. We're burning through these today, huh? This is I think we're trying to make it up for Wednesdays. Wednesday's cavalcade of confusion.
I
Uh,
was just thinking this is probably what the first standard normal episode in what, like a month and a half?
yeah, yeah. Yeah. We've had like lots of changes and lots of the holidays, right? Like,
Holidays
it's
came
not
through,
just the
people are
holidays. You go
traveling.
into January, you're still catching up from the holidays, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. I once tried to
Yeah,
educate an
exactly.
MSP on
The
it. Losing MSP, I realized how sanctimonious. That's a fine line, right? Like, not being arrogant, not sounding arrogant. Like, hey, you idiot, you did this. Nobody likes to have their mistakes pointed out, and arguably, like we said, it may not have been a mistake, with the exception of not being able to transfer it properly. Obviously, um, let's see here.
like you have to really think about before you say something like that. Am I genuinely trying to be helpful, or am I just trying to show this guy that I was right the
Yeah,
whole time? And if you're honest with yourself about that, you know what to do.
yeah. I extended a little bit further because everything for me is around productivity, right? Around outcome. And I look at what is the best case outcome from that conversation. Assuming they took it in stride, blah, blah, they're not going to undo it. They're not going to, maybe they'll go review their other domains to see if, they have something, or maybe not. You know what I mean? It to me, it's not even worth the conversation. Um,
Mhm.
it's chalk it up to boneheaded moves we all make. Um, all right, let's do one more. I'm feeling good. This is a good start to the weekend. Um, is there any of these that jump out at you? We got okay. He's trying to enable blocking. That's a technical thing. How many of you solely focused on managed security services?
How much time is left in this episode?
I mean, okay. So we have a little bit of time, so I'm going to expand this one a little bit. Um, can an MSP be an MSSP? I know CompTIA, I know you, Matt Lee. I've heard these conversations ad nauseum. I have very strong opinions on the matter. I have a very strong opinion on the matter. Can an MSP be an MSSP?
Oh man.
We're gonna piss off
There's so
everybody.
much nuance to this. Like so I'll give you my perspective on it. I don't know if you and I have ever actually discussed this. Um, my whole issue with the MSSP term and the MSP and like this whole thing is that ultimately somebody needs to quarterback this thing, and that becomes the issue. What I think the hang up is, MSSP is really like a terrible, terrible term. Now I've said that on recorded video. Um, like, yeah, outsourced security vendor, like outsourced SOC, things like that. But as far as someone solely wearing the security hat, does that mean as the MSP, I don't have to worry about security at all anymore? Right? That's a whole
Yeah,
issue.
I'm with you. I
Like, I
don't.
just hate the whole thing.
So there's a difference between installing a light bulb and doing the wiring in your house. I'm dumb enough to do both, but the it still holds true for the analogy of the MSP is required to do some level of security. There are some things that may be beyond their scope, right? SOC. I mean, 24/7 SOC on its own, that's a whole
It's the
animal
perfect
by itself.
example.
Yeah. So I don't think and I'm not getting into the whole MSP can't monitor themselves thing. That's a different conversation. But MSPs traditionally are not set up for that full 24/7 SOC, nor do they have the internal resources that have the skill and experience to manage that kind of thing. Um, that's a perfect outsource thing to me. I that's one of those things, like, I want to start my own credit card. I would be very reticent. Like, there's a high bar me to agree with you that you should do this on your own. But let me ask you, where does that line land for you? Right? Like, or what like tenants would be something. I mean, SOC is the easy one, right? What tenants would you say this is outside of the scope of an MSP? I need somebody else.
I think almost anything can be like a security design or architecture or anything like that. For me, it's that somebody on the vendor side, right? And I'm speaking from the perspective of the client, right? Someone needs to be in charge of my overall strategy here, and that's my
Yes.
MSP. And so it's just like a general contractor and subcontractors, right? You can sub out parts of a job. Maybe you don't know how to do plumbing or tile or something. Same thing with the MSP. You might know how to not know how to do um, have the staff for 24/7 monitoring or necessarily know how to implement some specific tool or project that the client needs, but ultimately it's still you. The MSP is the GC in this example, has to own and quarterback this. And where I really don't like the concept is that MSPs start thinking security, that's the MSSP's issue, right? That's where this
Right.
blows up and breaks down because nobody owns it. Or even worse, sometimes they think they both own it, and then nobody has a conversation about what's secure, who has the last word as far as can we do this, all of this stuff. Um, so I'm a believer in outsourcing where needed. If you want to call that MSSP, so be it. But you still have to be the owner of this. Somebody has to be in
Yeah.
charge.
Agreed 100%. Dr. Zoidberg Dean says pen testing comes to mind, the whole who watches the watchman. Pen testing, SOC audits, right? Or ISO audits, ISO 2701 can't be done. It has to be done by an
Mhm.
accountant. So it's like, there's certain things that you can't do, or by CPA. There's certain things you just can't do. Um, and to me, this is no different than requiring a vendor to support SaaS software, right? Like you would expect to have a support contract for that. Um, this is just one of those tools that maybe we'll argue about the next time we talk about the basic things for a client. Um, but it's just, and I think you're right. Everybody should have an internal stakeholder that is in charge of owning it for the MSP, and that person should be the liaison for the other security products, vendors, whatever, in their stack or whatever it happens to be. Um, I don't know. I don't know to expand on any of that. I think we've said all that can be said. As far as the how many of you solely focus on managed services and do just security? Yes, it's possible. Yes, you just described an MSSP. Congrats. But
And
I think
right, and
common,
focusing on managed security services is a totally fine thing to do. And
100%.
even the term, like maybe MSSP is a fine term. It's just the way that it's been defined by the industry is bad or wrong. Is when I think successful company that does this, I'm really thinking outsourced security components. Individual
Yeah,
parts of my security program get sent to them,
yeah.
and that's totally fine.
And realistically, even if you're a solely security focused MSP, you are still going to have stuff you outsource. I mean,
Mhm.
that's just the nature of the beast, right? Um, we're a nationwide telco. We still have pieces we have to, work with other vendors. And it's for the betterment of everybody involved. Let the subject matter experts do their thing. Um, I don't know. I bought vendor MDR product and managed SIM, that equals MSSP services. Um, Absolutely. We'll we'll pin that for we'll pin that for another time, and maybe we'll get Jason Slagle on. He loves to rant, wax poetic about this, and maybe we'll get Wayne Selk on to get a more tempered response on this because he has very strong opinions too. Um, so it's good to have. So Matt, we ran through this. I loved it. It was a normal episode, like you said. So it was nice, bring it back home kind of thing. Before we go into the chaos again, it was a nice juxtaposition from Wednesday's episode for sure. But if you haven't seen the Wednesday's episode, I still think it was a great thought
It
exercise.
was awesome.
Yeah, even in basic communication, right? Like that's a good point of the whole dumb thing. Like I promise you, inside my head, I'm screaming, "Why are you guys not getting this?" Totally acknowledging I'm the reason you guys aren't getting it, right? So, but still, it's frustrating because I think I'm speaking clearly. Thankfully, with the group think we were able to hammer it out, and we're still going to define it a little bit, but we've all had those moments with clients where we're trying to explain something that in our head is clear, and to the other party, it's just not getting across. And I do think we had a very productive discussion. So at minimum, there are tenets there I think people should watch, and at minimum, it'll whet your appetite for the next time we discuss it soon enough.
Agreed.
Do you have anything? What do you got coming up next week?
I'm traveling next week, so nothing too
Oh, nice.
exciting there. From the ConnectWise side, the only thing worth mentioning is Pitch It just opened. So I don't know if any
Nice.
vendors watch this, but if there are any newer or vendors looking to expand in the MSP space or starting to get going, the ConnectWise Pitch It for 2024 submissions just opened yesterday.
Nice. We'll get the link and we'll put it in the show notes. We worked very closely with Sean Lardo last year and the year before, promoting Pitch It. Especially when he was doing the podcast circuit. And we were there at the winning announcements at ITNC last year, which was fun. It was good fun. I'm curious to see what they make it this year, because last year was double the year before the number of contestants, and it was
It was
truly
big.
global. We did it was 4 contestants on different continents, including New Zealand and Asia. So that was fun. Looking forward to it. We have stuff coming up. Do I have my upcoming events in here? I'm a horrible producer, so I probably don't. I actually No, I do not. So anyway,
Nice.
check out. We have all the other stuff next week. We have AI Roundup. We have MSP Dispatch. We have MSP Community Live again next week. So check us out. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out with us for the last 45, 50 minutes, talking about all the best conversations in our community. We appreciate you. And until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.